Nintendo has won gaming, essentially. Enough with the whole like Nintendo won the console war. Old news at this point. They beat Sega, they beat Sony, they beat Xbox. They beat Apple with the iPhone. They beat all the gaming PC companies. They beat whoever the hell puts out those gaming handheld tablets, right? They outdid the Apple TVs. They outsmarted China. Tencent. A corporation backed by their Chinese government, right? Nintendo's won. And there's really no possible way for them to ever fall from this pedestal. It's going to take a long time for the company to kind of have an equal in this regard. For comparison's sake, Disney has been like on top of the world in animation for its entire existence, and like none of its direct competitors are even close to where they're at. So Nintendo's kind of their video game equivalent, the Japanese Disney. And they're going to be bigger than that. Yes, I would say Nintendo has already outperformed the mouse when it comes to like having quality iconic products, being able to dominate a sector of technology, and by actually being able to innovate and create iconic characters. Cuz if you know anything about Disney, you know they did not invent any of their classic characters. All of them are ripped straight from fairy tales. So, with that in mind, when you see how like Disney has been dropping the ball lately, trying to push the message, right? Nintendo is poised to kind of take control of the world of entertainment. Next year we're going to see the Mario movie sequel and the Zelda movie, dominate the box office. We're going to see the Switch 2 on store shelves. We're going to see all these crazy new games, while we're seeing information that Sony is canceling major live service products. Companies like Platinum Games are going under, and more established third parties are going to be forced into a position where they're going to have to abandon PlayStation and start supporting Nintendo consoles again, because there just is no way around it. Operation Destroy Nintendo has been a complete and abject failure in every single way, shape, and form. When you just see the game journos writhe, when you see them seethe, when you see them like go nuts, the most recent example being Donkey Kong Country Returns, right? Actually, no, the Switch 2 reveal. All of them are coming out trying to gaslight people into thinking the gaming PCs are going to be superior, that the handheld tablet things are going to take off, that the PS5 is going to be stiff competition. Not going to happen. I've said this for a long time, but like it really feels like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the last major stand for PlayStation and Xbox, because this is going to be a huge AAA project that comes out, sells a ton of units, becomes hugely successful, wins game of the year, is just lavished everywhere, worshipped. Everyone's gonna like give it 10 out of 10s. It's gonna be this huge thing that is gonna be really quickly overshadowed by the new games on Nintendo Switch 2. People are going to move on. They're going to move on to where the games actually are, and they're going to play the Mario game on Nintendo Switch 2. They're going to play the Mario Kart game on Nintendo Switch 2. They're going to play Zelda on Switch 2. They're going to be playing Pokemon on Switch 2. Like actually there's a Pokemon game coming out this year on Switch. So like this process, as I've described it in the past, it is I've described it as like a death of a thousand cuts, right? Because there are still a ton of projects that sell like millions of units from these like third party developers. There are still like some minor success stories, but like more and more they're getting choked out by just the stiff competition that they're going up against. Donkey Kong Country Returns by itself is outperforming Astrobot without even taking into consideration, the wider world of Nintendo, taking into consideration like, every other platformer they've made. Like a port of a 15-year-old Wii game is well on its way to outperforming Astrobot. It's just one of those crazy things. It's just one of those one of those things that just make you laugh every time you notice it. Like there's nothing Astrobot could possibly do to compete with Mario, with DK, with Wario, with Yoshi. Like nothing, right? The character will never establish himself as a video game icon, even after a decade of trying to gaslight people into thinking this is some like industry leader. And that's what this is all coming down to, really. Like the real issue that Sony is having when it comes to devaluing Nintendo products, nobody listens to or respects gaming journalists anymore. So when they come out and give Donkey Kong Country Returns for being a port of an old game while giving The Last of Us Part 2 remastered high scores, people point that out. People address the double standard. People begin to notice, And when people start noticing, it leads to the situation in which people are starting to ask questions. Why exactly is there a score discrepancy between PlayStation exclusives and Nintendo ones? And more people are beginning to realize that the Nintendo games are just better, regardless of what the game journals say, regardless of what the Game Awards say, regardless of like what the industry as a whole say. Last year, actually, no, it was the year before that. We were told that Baldur's Gate 3 was the game of the year, right? We were told this was this huge cultural phenomenon. We told it was this big deal. It was driving people, like it was like a huge thing, right? It was outsold by Mario Wonder and outsold Tears by the Kingdom. And also, was those were not the only games that Nintendo put out that year, right? A really good example of what I mean when it comes to this kind of thing, like it's all smoke and mirrors. When you look into this situation a little bit, you begin to realize that Nintendo has come out on top every single time. For example, a lot of people don't know that the Wii U was actually fairly profitable. People don't realize that it had an extremely high attach rate. People don't realize that that was the generation in which people began to realize that Nintendo games were better than the competition. And that's entirely because of the incredibly smart business moves Nintendo made around the turn of the decade. Moving away from E3, establishing the Nintendo Directs, establishing the Miiverse system. There were all these ways to just avoid the corrupted gaming outlets, and in a matter of years, all of their control completely withered away and died. Like a very painful, unfortunate death. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Like we were told that the Steam Deck was a viable competitor to the Nintendo Switch, right? It wasn't. It only sold like 3 million units. A Steam Deck 2 is not going to radically improve sales. What exactly is a Steam Deck 2 going to offer as opposed to, to the Nintendo Switch 2, which has all these cool new features. We know about the improved Joy-Cons, the mouse control. Like there's all this stuff, but there's all this stuff that's happening, right? And we're at this stage now that people are coping and seething about the realities of the current state of the gaming industry, is that Nintendo is not in a position where they can fall from the top spot. They've dominated everyone. They've established themselves as like this huge brand, not only in gaming, but in entertainment as a whole. And we're still in this weird phase where like nobody really wants to admit it, because this goes against everything they've been told about the company for the past several years. People seriously thought they were going to go bankrupt because the Wii U, a console they were making money on. To me, this really goes to show you just how delusional the gaming media actually is, how hard they tried to push this narrative that Nintendo was a failing company, and just how desperate they were to keep up this farce for as long as they needed to. And it all has collapsed. As of 2025, there is no reason to get a PlayStation console. Xbox is a dying brand, and PC is just going to crumble away as Nintendo finds new and inventive ways to take out the emulation scene, right? There is no real competition for Nintendo at this stage. And as a result of that, You're going to see this company reach extremely lucrative new heights in the next several years. It's over.